Lara had mastered the art of invisibility. Not the magical kind, though on days like this she might have traded her soul for it, but the social camouflage of someone who moved through life as a background character. A quiet existence, predictable, peaceful, unremarkable. Until today, the classroom buzzed with the restless energy of under-caffeinated college students and the nasal droning of Professor Albright, who delivered a lecture on pre-modern Eastern trade routes with all the enthusiasm of a dying houseplant. Lara sat in the back, hood up, notebook open, pen gliding in flawless cursive. Not that she was truly listening. Her notes were more habit than focus, her thoughts already drifting toward her upcoming shift at the cafe. How many espresso shots she'd need to survive it, and whether she could afford another box of instant noodles this week. When the lecture finally ended, she packed up quickly, keeping her head down, slipping through the sea of students like a shadow. The quad emp side was unusually crowded, the autumn wind biting and sharp. She didn't see him at first, not until she was halfway across the square and felt it. That prickle, a whisper at the base of her spine. The sensation of being watched. Not casually, not curiously, but intensely, like prey caught in a spotlight. Her steps slowed. Across the quad, near the ancient oak in the center of campus, stood a group of students. They didn't laugh, didn't talk. They just stared. 5 of them, 3 men, 2 women, all absurdly beautiful. The kind of untouchable elegance that felt surgically crafted. They weren't dressed like students, more like they'd stepped out of a high-end fashion shoot and accidentally wandered into a university brochure. They stood too still, too quiet, and one of them, the one in the center, watched her. Lara's eyes met his, and the world narrowed. He was tall, all shadows and sharp lines, with tousled black hair and eyes that burned like embers. His face didn't move, not a blink, not a twitch. But something ancient flickered behind those eyes, something that saw her far too clearly. She looked away instantly and picked up her pace. Don't engage, just walk, just walk. The moment she glanced back, they were gone. She shivered. The cafe was warm and crowded, smelling of burnt coffee and sugary pastries. Lara ducked behind the counter, tied her apron, and forced a smile for the next customer. Same routine, 4 hours, then home, then silence. "Excuse me?" She glanced up to see a man in a suit that screamed money and condescension. He held out a latte with disdain, his nose wrinkled. "I ordered a large. This is barely a medium," he said. "Also, the foam is wrong. It's supposed to be micro-am. This is bubbles." Lara blinked. He was right, technically, but also a jerk. "Oh my gosh, you're so right," she said sweetly. "Let me fix that. Soup, super large, just for you." She took the cup and turned her back to him, rolling her eyes hard enough to see stars. When she handed him the new latte with a smile and a wink, the man sputtered, clearly unsure if he'd been insulted or pampered. "Hey!" came a voice behind her. "That was amazing!" Lara turned. Maya, a girl from her ancient history class, stood in line, grinning. "We're going to Blackwood Tavern tonight," she said. "You should totally come." Lara forced a smile. Rain check. I've got a mountain of reading. Another lie, but necessary. Maya's smile faltered, but she nodded and moved on. Lara exhaled. Attachments were dangerous. feelings were messier than bloodstains. She needed distance, quiet, control. She finished the shift in autopilot, tossed her apron in the back room, and stepped out into the night. Cold air hit her skin, clearing her mind like a slap. And then she felt it again. The prickling, the pressure. She turned sharply, scanning the empty quad. And there they were, the 5 from earlier, standing beneath the same oak tree, still silent, watching. The man with the ember eyes took a step toward her. Nope. Lara turned and walked fast, her heartbeat thundering. When she looked again, they were gone. The library was her sanctuary, or it had been. Dusty old paper, silence, warm pools of light. Lara picked a table in the far corner and buried herself in a stack of books on pre-ordined warfare. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind distracted. It didn't help. The memory of that man's eyes, it was like they'd been carved into the back of her skull. She told herself it was nothing. Sleep deprivation, stress. And then the air changed, heavier, thicker, like the moment before a storm. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She felt him before he sat beside her. Dante Valerius. She knew his name. Everyone did. His family owned half the state. His father had wings on his credit cards and rumors of dark dealings in Europe. European forests. Dante opened a book, said nothing, didn't even look at her. But his presence was suffocating, predatory. Her muscles tensed. She needed to leave. Lara stood gathering her books, trying not to shake. As she moved, she collided with someone rushing past. Books spilled everywhere. Oh no, I'm so sorry, stammered the older man. Professor Miller. She bent to help him, her fingers brushing an old, worn tome on the floor. The title glinted faintly in gold. Annihilators and Omens, a history of no-bloods. Before she could ask, Professor Miller snatched the book from her, eyes wide with panic. You didn't see this, he whispered. You didn't see anything. And then he ran. Lara stared after him, shaken. What the hell was a no-blood, and why was she suddenly at the center of something no one wanted her to know? She backed away from the table and looked. Dante was gone, like he'd never been there. She left the library fast, her breath uneven, her pulse erratic. That night, her apartment felt wrong, too quiet, too still. She stood at the window, watching the alley below. Then movement, fast, blurred, violent. 2 men, one slammed into the wall, bones cracked, and in the flickering security light, she saw it. His face shifted, fangs, glowing eyes, not human. She gasped, stumbling back from the glass. No! This isn't happening. She backed into her couch, knees shaking, breath catching, and then his voice cut through the night, low, dark, commanding. No one can know she saw that. Her heart stopped because he was looking straight at her window. No one can know she saw that, he said. His gaze locked on hers from 3 floors below. Chapter 2. Lara didn't sleep, not even for a second. She sat curled on the far end of her bed, hoodie sleeves tugged over her hands, staring at the window like it might betray her. The alley below had gone still. No bodies, no blood, no monsters, just the ghost of what she'd seen, what she was sure. The glint of gold in Dante Valerius's eyes, the snarl of fangs, the way he'd said it. No one can know she saw that, and he was staring up at her. Lara had always trusted logic, proof, tangible facts. But what she'd seen had shredded all of that like paper and fire. Were they actors? Drugs? A film crew? No, she couldn't lie to herself. Something shifted in that man's face, something inhuman. And Dante, he wasn't surprised. He expected it. That voice, low and commanding, echoed still in her skull. She could almost feel the weight of it pressing against her bones, not just threatening, claiming. Her stomach twisted. Her world, once safely colorless and invisible, now felt like it was bursting with things she was never meant to see. The next morning, she looked like death. Her skin was pale, her eyes heavy-lidded. The hoodie she wore felt like armor. Her scarf wrapped too tightly around her throat, like she was trying to hide from the air itself. She kept her headphones in but didn't play music. She needed to hear footsteps, whispers, anything. Every sound on campus felt louder, too crisp, too wrong. When she passed the ancient oak tree again, her breath caught. They were there, all 5 of them, silent, unmoving, staring straight at her. She tried not to look, but her eyes betrayed her, flicking toward them for a half-second too long. The man at the center, tall, sharp-jawed, glowing with quiet menace, met her gaze again. Dante. He hadn't blinked. None of them did. Just standing like statues carved from a nightmare. Students walked by them, not noticing, laughing, talking, normal, like the 5 shadows didn't even exist. Was she the only one who saw them? Her heart thumped painfully in her chest. She pushed forward, her legs mechanical, faster, through the archway, around the corner, and then footsteps behind her. She turned. Nothing. She turned again. Dante was in front of her. He stood in the center of the narrow path between 2 lecture halls. Hands in his pockets, unmoving. She froze. "What do you want?" He said nothing, just stared. Lara's breath trembled out. "Did you follow me home?" Still nothing. Her voice rose. "I saw what you did. I saw him change. What are you?" That finally made him blink. He stepped forward, and she stepped back, almost stumbling over her own boots. He was so close now, she could smell him. Cold pine, rich earth, and something sharp, like a metal blade, held over a fire. "You should not have seen that," he said quietly. His voice sent a shiver down her spine, deep, resonant, like it wasn't meant for human ears. "I didn't ask to," she snapped. You attacked someone. He deserved it." "Deserved what? Being mauled to death in an alley?" Dante's eyes flashed. He was one of them. He was coming for you. Lara's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? Who's them?" He said nothing. The weight of his silence was worse than a scream. She turned to leave. "Lara," he said. She stiffened. He shouldn't know her name. She didn't tell him. She never told him. She spun around, rage and fear blazing in her chest. "Stay away from me." "I can't. I'm serious. I'll report you. Can't the security? The police. They won't stop what's coming. His voice was low, final. You've already been marked. Her hands shook as she pushed through the heavy doors of the library and headed straight for the reference desk. "Hi," she said to the assistant, her voice too high. Do you have anything on null bloods?" The assistant blinked, frowning. "No what?" She swallowed. "Null bloods. It was in a book a professor dropped yesterday. Something about omens." "Never heard of it." He started typing. "Null bloods. Nope, nothing in the system." "Are you sure that's the right term? I saw it. It was—" "Sorry," he said, brushing her off. "Maybe a private journal, professor-only collection." Lara turned away, her thoughts spinning. She was sure that book had been real. She'd touched it, read the title. But now, nothing. Like it never existed. Just like the 5 strangers who moved like they didn't need the world's permission. Just like Dante. Later that evening, she sat in the cafe again, pretending to study. But really she was watching the door, watching the window, watching shadows move out of place. Maya appeared again, cheerful as ever. "Hey, we missed you last night." "I wasn't feeling well. You okay now?" Lara forced a nod. "Good. Oh, and by the way, what's going on with Dante Valerius?" Lara blinked. "What do you mean?" "He's been staring at you all week." "I thought it was just my imagination, but Emma saw it too. He was at your table in the library, wasn't he?" Lara felt the air go out of her lungs. Yeah, but he didn't say much." "Well, I'd be careful. Guys like him don't stare without a reason." "I don't think he's interested in coffee dates," Lara muttered under her breath. But Maya had already moved on to a group of friends. Lara's hand curled tighter around her paper cup. She knew what she saw, what she felt, and she knew something else now too. She wasn't imagining things. That night, Lara returned to her apartment and locked every bolt. She didn't turn on the lights. She watched the alley from behind the curtain. Midnight passed, then wonder. Stillness, nothing, and then movement. A blur. 2 of the same strangers from campus racing along the rooftop like wolves in human skin. Her breath hitched. She wasn't safe. Not from them, not from him. A knock sounded at her door, slow, measured. She crept forward, her heart thundering. She didn't ask who it was, because she already knew. When she opened it, he was there. Dante in a black coat, shadows clinging to him like vines. "You're not sleeping," he said. She stepped back. "Get out." "I can't." "You will." He crossed the threshold. She tried to slam the door in his face, but it was too late. He was already inside. He crossed the threshold, and the second his foot touched her floor, the lights shattered overhead. Chapter 3. The ceiling lights exploded like tiny stars. Sparks rained down, and Lara stumbled backward with a yelp, arms raised to shield her face. Glass tinkled onto the hardwood floor, and in the sudden gloom, the room was lit only by the pale moonlight slanting through the window. Dante didn't flinch. He stood in the doorway, framed by the shards of electricity and the shadows behind him. His black coat billowed slightly, though there was no wind. His eyes glowed. No longer brown, but a burning, molten gold. "What? What did you just do?" Lara gasped, backing away. "I didn't do that," he said simply, voice low and calm. "You did? What?" "You reacted to my presence subconsciously." "The lights responded to you." "That doesn't make sense." She looked around at the destroyed bulbs, at the curling smoke, at him. None of this makes sense because you're not ready for the truth. Well, try me, she snapped, her fists trembling. Dante took a slow step forward. Your blood isn't normal, Lara. She froze. Excuse me? He stopped within arm's reach, head tilted slightly, eyes trained on her like she was a riddle he was still learning to read. You're not human, he said quietly. The words hit like a slap. I am human, she whispered breathless. I was born here, raised here. I get tired, I bleed, I have student loans. You were raised human doesn't make you one. No. No, I would know. My parents are gone, he finished. Both died in a car crash before you turned 10. There's no birth certificate, no hospital records. You were never even officially enrolled in public school until middle grade. Before that, you didn't exist. She stared at him. Her legs felt suddenly weak. How do you know that? Because I've been looking for you for years. Her stomach dropped. Why? Dante's gaze darkened. Because your scent called to me the first day you stepped on campus, and because your blood carries the same mark as mine. She shook her head, retreating until her back hit the far wall. This is crazy. I'm not some creature. No, you're not. Relief washed through her until he added, You're something older. Rarer. His voice was reverent now, almost fearful. Older. Rarer. His voice was reverent now, almost fearful. You're a null-blood, Lara. The words struck a chord. She remembered the book. Annihilators and Omens, a history of null-bloods, the panic in Professor Miller's eyes, his trembling hands. Null-bloods are dangerous, Dante said, to both humans and shifters. That's why you've been hidden, why your kind was erased from the archives. You nullify power, break curses, destroy bonds. I don't even know what that means. It means you don't just see the supernatural, Lara. You can undo it. Her breath caught. You're a myth, Dante said softly. A living curse breaker. The kind alphas fear. The kind kings covet. The kind others want to kill before you learn what you really are. Lara slid down the wall, knees to her chest, head spinning. No, this is insane. I didn't want it to happen like this, he said. But they know you're awake now. Last night, they were hunting you. She looked up at him. Who were they? Rogues, he answered. Hunters, alphas from fallen packs who'd kill to get a null blood under their control. Control? She echoed. Your blood can bind packs or break them, dominate alphas or ruin them. You're not just rare, Lara. You're a weapon. She shivered. And you? She said. What are you? I'm Alpha of the Valeria's pack, the oldest pack in North America. My ancestors ran with the original bloodlines. We're protectors of the old ways. And you expect me to trust you? No, he said. I expect you to remember me. What? Dante knelt in front of her, his voice suddenly softer. You don't, do you? She stared into his eyes. 5 years ago, he said, I found you near the ruins of the old sanctuary forest. You were barely breathing, covered in blood that wasn't yours. You ran from something. Her blood ran cold. I took you to the river's edge and marked you to protect you. A temporary bond. I didn't know if you'd survive. When I returned, you were gone. Lara blinked rapidly. A flicker of something. A memory flashed in her mind. Water, trees, A man with golden eyes whispering words she didn't understand. Pain, then darkness. I locked that memory away, he said, to keep you hidden. But your powers are waking now. The memory will return piece by piece. She shook her head. No, I don't know you. I don't want this. You don't have a choice. I do, she hissed, and I want you out of my apartment. He didn't move. Her eyes snapped with fury. Get out. Then she raised her hand and the air around her shimmered. The floorboards cracked under her palm. Dante's jaw tightened. He turned slowly and stepped toward the door. As he placed a hand on the handle, he looked back over his shoulder. When they come for you, and they will call for me. I won't, she said. He smiled faintly. You will, because no one else can protect you, and no one else will tell you what your parents died for. The door shut behind him with a soft click. Laura sat frozen on the floor, her pulse wild in her throat. Then her phone vibrated. One message, unknown number. They found you. Run! Before she could move, the window behind her shattered and a wolf with red eyes leapt into the room. Chapter 4. The glass exploded inward. Laura ducked instinctively, covering her head with her arms as razor-sharp shards flew past. The snarl that followed wasn't human. It was deep, guttural, and terrifyingly close. She rolled away, heart hammering in her throat, just in time to see it. A massive wolf, twice the size of any dog, stood in the wreckage of her window, its fur jet black, its eyes burning red. Not glowing, burning. It didn't hesitate. With an unnatural grace, it leapt toward her. Lara screamed, scrambling across the floor, her fingers slipping on shards in panic. She reached for anything. Her lamp, her backpack, the broken mug near the wall. She flung it at the wolf. It hit with a dull thud, barely slowing it down. The beast lunged. She braced herself. Then a blur of black crashed through the front door. Dante. His body collided with the red-eyed wolf mid-air. Wood splintered. They rolled across the floor in a violent tangle of claws, teeth, and fury. The sound of growls filled the room, a battle of beasts echoing in every corner. Dante shifted mid-motion. Lara had no words. 1 second he was man, tall, lean, brutal grace in a long coat. The next, he was other, a massive silver wolf, eyes glowing gold, teeth bared. It was beautiful and horrifying. The two wolves slammed into the wall. Paint cracked. A picture frame shattered. Dante's jaws clamped down on the other wolf's throat, but the red-eyed one twisted, slashing deep into Dante's side with a hooked claw. Blood sprayed across her bookshelves. Lara's scream broke through the chaos. "Stop it!" As if on command, both wolves froze mid-lunge. The red-eyed wolf snarled, leapt back, and disappeared through the shattered window in a blur of darkness. Gone, just like that. Dante collapsed in a heap, shifting back into human form in a slow, painful shimmer of light. He was shirtless now, his torso torn open, skin bleeding freely. Deep claw marks ran across his ribs, and yet his eyes burned only with one concern. "You okay?" he rasped. Lara nodded mutely. He grunted, dragging himself to a sitting position against the wall, one hand pressed over his wound. "You shifted," she whispered. ... You saw worse last night, but I saw it, saw you this time. Your powers are sharpening. I'm not a null blood. I'm not. You stopped the fight. He cut in. Your voice stopped them. She stared at him, throat dry. That wolf, was it one of the rogues? He nodded. A bounty hunter for me. He met her gaze. You're worth more than gold to the wrong pack. She tried to breathe normally, failed. This is insane, she whispered. My apartment's destroyed. My life was never going to stay normal. I didn't ask for this. No one does, he said, voice softening. But it finds us anyway. 15 minutes later, she sat on her bedroom floor, bandaging the shallow cut on her palm. Dante had insisted on cleaning his own wounds. He sat across from her now, shirt discarded, ribs taped. Laura tried not to stare. The marks across his chest weren't just fresh wounds. They were old scars, too. Long, jagged ones, like he'd seen war. You said something before, she said finally, that I'd been marked before. He looked at her. In the forest years ago, when you saved me, I placed a veil over your blood to mask your scent. My scent? It's unique, he said. Powerful. It carries your bloodline. Any alpha who gets close enough will feel it and react. Her thoughts scrambled. What bloodline? My parents weren't... Your parents weren't your biological parents, he said gently. Lara froze. I'm sorry, he added. They loved you, protected you. But you were left at their door when you were a baby. No name, no history, just a strange birthmark and a bracelet. She blinked. How do you? Because I've seen the mark before among ancient records. It belongs to the House of Miren. What's that? The last known no bloodline. She pulled her sleeve back. On her wrist, just beneath her bracelet, a birthmark shaped like a crescent moon shimmered faintly under the moonlight. She'd had it her whole life. Thought nothing of it. You're the last of them, he whispered. And they're all hunting you. Later that night, Dante made a call. Laura stood near the bathroom door, listening. She's awakening, he said quietly. Faster than we expected. I had to fight one of the Crimson Fangs tonight. They found her already. A pause. No, I don't think she's ready to leave the human world yet. But she has to soon, before the moon marks her. Another pause. She doesn't trust me. He looked at her then, through the reflection in the cracked mirror. Not yet. He ended the call and didn't say anything else. The next morning, Laura woke up to silence. The scent of pine lingered faintly in the air, and Dante was gone. He'd left a note. Watch the mark. When it glows, run. D. She stared at it, her fingers shaking. She didn't go to class that day. She barely left the couch. It wasn't until sundown that she heard the knock, a slow, deliberate rhythm. She opened the door halfway, expecting Dante. It wasn't him. It was Professor Miller. His face was pale, his eyes wild. They know, he whispered. They're coming. He handed her something wrapped in old cloth. Lara unwrapped it. A book. The same book. Annihilators and Omens. A history of no-bloods. This is forbidden, he said. But you have to read it now. You have to know what you are. She opened to the first page, and the illustration inside made her blood run cold. It was her mark drawn in gold ink with one name beneath it. The No Blood Queen, and beneath that, scribbled in red ink, was one final warning. Beware the Alpha who claims you. He carries the twin curse. Chapter 5. Lara stared at the name beneath the golden mark in the book. The No Blood Queen. Her breath hitched. Her fingers hovered over the parchment as if the ink might burn her. The drawing was perfect, an elegant crescent moon surrounded by thorn-like runes. It was the exact image that lived on her wrist, a mark she had long ignored, long considered nothing more than an unusual birthmark. Professor Miller was pacing now, wringing his hands. They won't stop now that your scent is known. Lara's gaze snapped to him. What does that mean? What exactly do they want? To bind you, he said grimly, or to end you. She didn't know which was worse. You said something last time. No bloodeds. They undo power. What does that mean? Professor Miller stopped pacing and looked at her as though debating how much truth he dared unleash. It means you were born to tear down the very structure the supernatural world relies on. Mate bonds, alpha dominance, magical hierarchies. No bloods were rare, yes, but also feared, loved, worried, hunted. Lara felt sick. Why me? Because the mark chose you, and because the alpha who scented you, Dante Valerius, he's not just any alpha. She flinched. I figured that much out. He bears the twin curse. Lara blinked. The what? Professor Miller's eyes darted toward the shadows near her kitchen window. It's a myth spoken in hushed voices at the oldest summits. The twin curse was cast generations ago by the first null-blood queen. Lara's lips parted. Queen like royalty in her time. Yes, the null-bloods once ruled beside shifters, not beneath them. She fell in love with a shifter king, but he betrayed her, tried to bind her power to control the packs. Lara's chest tightened. In her rage, she cursed the twin bloodlines that sprang from him, Alpha and Seer. One would always crave the null blood's power. The other would try to kill her. Lara shivered. Dante is Alpha and his twin. Professor Miller said grimly, is the Seer. Wait, Dante has a twin? He nodded. A brother hidden, exiled. No records, no sightings in years, but he's alive. And the curse says that only one of them can have you, and only if you choose. Lara leaned against the table for support. So if I don't choose, the curse consumes them both slowly. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She had just been trying to survive her shift at the cafe 2 days ago. Why didn't Dante tell me this? She whispered. Because he doesn't want to scare you, and maybe because he doesn't know which role he plays in the curse. Lara looked down at her mark. It had begun to shimmer faintly under the flickering kitchen light. What happens if I choose the wrong one? She asked softly. Professor Miller didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed her hands. Listen to me. There's a summit in 2 days, a secret meeting of the packs. Dante will take you. He has to. Your presence will change everything. Some will protect you. Others will want your blood spilled across the stone floor before the old laws rise again. Lara could barely process it. What if I refuse to go? You won't have that luxury much longer. The mark is awakening. It will call to the moon, and when that happens, every alpha within miles will sense your power. Suddenly, the air shifted. A cold draft whipped through the room. Professor Miller froze. They're here. Lara bolted to the window. Outside, the world was wrapped in velvet night, but shadows moved where they shouldn't. 3 figures stood just beyond the fence, their silhouettes too still, too silent. How did they find me? She whispered. You used your voice last night, Professor Miller replied. Your power isn't fully veiled anymore. A loud knock boomed through the apartment, not at the front door, at the back. Professor Miller rushed to the bookshelf and yanked on a lever beneath it. A hidden panel in the wall groaned open, revealing a narrow stone stairway descending into darkness. Lara blinked. Seriously, old campus, he muttered. This building was part of the original settlement. There are tunnels beneath it, tunnels that lead to the Valyrian grounds. She hesitated. Go, he hissed. She didn't wait to argue, feet pounding, heart racing. She dove into the hidden passage just as the back door burst open behind her, and voices shouted in a language she didn't understand. She didn't look back. The stone tunnel was cold and wet and twisted like the veins of some great beast. She ran blindly, her pulse a thunder in her ears. She didn't know where she was going, but her body did. It was like something inside her knew. When she emerged, breathless and shaking, into the moonlit clearing on the other side of campus, someone was waiting. Dante. He stood beside a sleek black car, coat whipping in the wind, golden eyes fixed on her with that same impossible intensity. You were supposed to be under protection, he snapped. I was. He caught her as she stumbled. What happened? Your brother happened, she said harassedly. Dante's face darkened. You saw him? No, but I saw the book. The curse. And I know now, Dante. I know what I am. He didn't speak. I don't want to be some queen or weapon or legend. I just want to be me. Dante's jaw tensed. You can't be normal anymore. I never was I? He looked at her. Really looked at her, and there was something like grief in his eyes. I don't want to hurt you, Lara. I don't want to destroy you either. He stepped closer slowly. But we're bound, and the moon will make you choose. She swallowed. Your twin, Cassian, the seer? Dante nodded once. Where is he? He's closer than you think. Before she could ask more, the ground beneath them shook. A crack like thunder split the air. They turned just in time to see a wall of flame erupt from the tunnel behind her. Lara's scream caught in her throat. Professor Miller! Dante cursed. They sealed the exit. Is he? We can't help him now. We have to move. But before he could drag her to the car, the air rippled, and from the woods stepped a figure in silver robes. Eyes blindfolded, mouth stitched shut with thread made of shadow. Lara gasped. What? What is that? Dante's voice was low, furious. The seer's harbinger. And behind the stitched creature, a second figure stepped from the shadows. His face identical to Dante's, but his eyes burned red. Chapter 6. Lara couldn't breathe. It was like staring into a broken mirror. Dante and not Dante. The same chiseled jawline, the same dark hair tousled by the wind, the same tall frame, radiating deadly authority. But that's where the similarities ended. The man beside the stitched seer's harbinger radiated something darker. Where Dante's golden eyes burned with heat and control, this man's glowed red, cold, piercing, and sharp enough to cut straight through her soul. Cassian, Dante said, his voice low and venomous. The twin smile was slow, mocking, filled with lazy cruelty. Brother, he replied, tone smooth as silk, laced with poison. I thought I'd save you the trouble of tracking me down. Lara took an instinctive step back, pressing against Dante's side. Cassian's gaze flicked to her, and something in his expression shifted. "You've grown," he murmured. Her stomach turned. "And we've met before." "Not quite," he said. "But I've watched you from afar," Dante snarled. "You'll keep watching from the grave if you lay a hand on her." Cassian only chuckled, taking another step forward. The Harbinger moved with him, eerily silent. "I don't have to touch her," he said lightly. "She's already part of the curse, just like you. And she deserves to choose, don't you think?" Lara looked between them. "Why are you even here? What do you want?" "To free you," Cassian said simply. Dante growled, pushing Lara gently behind him. "He wants your power, that's all." "Correction," Cassian said, tone sharpening. "I want your freedom. I want to end the ancient bloodlines that enslaved us all. You're the key, Lara. You have the power to unbind fate." Lara felt her heartbeat in her throat. "What if I don't want any of this?" "Then walk away," Cassian said. "See how long the other alphas let you live." "She's not going with you," Dante said, stepping forward. "You can't protect her forever," his brother snapped, voice colder now. "The longer you hide her, the faster the curse eats through your mind. You know it's already begun. You can feel it." Dante's jaw clenched. Lara turned sharply to him. "What is he talking about?" Dante didn't answer. Cassian did. "Didn't he tell you? The curse isn't just poetic, it's literal. One of us loses control. The other loses sanity. Eventually, one goes feral." Lara backed up. "No," Dante said firmly. "That's not how it works," Cassian sneered. "Keep lying to her then, but she'll see. The moon always tells the truth." He raised a hand. The Harbinger moved. Before Dante or Lara could react, the creature flicked its fingers toward the ground. From the earth rose a glowing rune, ancient, flickering with red energy. Lara's mark burned. She screamed, dropping to her knees. The pain lanced through her like fire beneath her skin, crawling from her wrist, up her arm, into her chest. "Lara!" Dante rushed to her side. Cassian's voice echoed with twisted satisfaction. Now she knows what's waking inside her. Now she knows what she is. Dante gathered her in his arms, his teeth bared in a snarl. "You're done here!" He lifted his free hand and slammed his palm against the rune. Golden fire erupted, blasting Cassian and the Harbinger back into the trees. The explosion shattered the silence, burning symbols into the air that lingered even after they disappeared into the smoke. When it cleared, the forest was empty. They were gone. But Lara still shook in Dante's arms. Her mark pulsed, hot, alive. I can't breathe," she gasped. "You're okay," he whispered, his voice rough. "It's over." "No, it's not," she said. He was right. Dante stiffened. "I felt it, Dante. The moment that rune lit up, it was like the forest knew me, like something ancient woke up inside me, something old." He helped her to her feet slowly. "We'll figure it out together." She looked into his eyes. For a second, he looked afraid. Not of Cassian, of her. Back at the Valerius estate, Lara sat wrapped in a blanket by the fire. She hadn't spoken in an hour. She kept staring at her wrist, where her crescent mark still glowed faintly under the skin. Dante stood near the window, speaking with someone over the phone. She could only hear snippets. "Yes," he summoned the Harbinger. "No," the mark reacted. "She needs to be prepared before the summit." He turned back to her, face unreadable. "You're not going to be safe here much longer." She stood up. "I want the truth. No more secrets." He didn't deny her. "The curse binds both of us," he admitted. "If the fated mate you doesn't choose between me and Cassian before the full moon, one of us will die. The other loses everything." "Even if I don't want to choose?" she asked. "You will," he said softly. "The bond won't let you ignore it." She crossed the room, standing inches from him. "You didn't ask for this. Neither did I. So why does it feel like everything in me is pulling toward you?" "Because you were born to destroy everything I am," he said, voice thick with emotion. "And I was born to love you anyway." That night, Laura dreamed. In her dream, she stood in the center of the moonlit university quad. Around her, figures in robes chanted in a language she didn't understand. Her mark burned like a star. And at the edge of the circle, two men, Dante cloaked in gold, Cassian cloaked in ash. They stood watching, waiting, and in her hand 2 blades, one pulsed with light, one with shadow. A voice whispered in her mind, "Only one may rise, only one may fall, and only your blood decides." She woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. Outside, the moon hovered just above the horizon, full and bright, and on her wrist, the mark began to shift. The crescent turned into a wolf, and it opened its mouth to howl. Chapter 7. The howl ripped through the night, long, low, and ancient. Lara clutched her wrist, staring in disbelief as the crescent mark warped, transformed. No longer just a glowing symbol, it moved like liquid gold beneath her skin. The crescent curved into a wolf's head, then shifted into an open mouth, howling silently with her heartbeat. She staggered out of bed, panting. Her apartment, once her sanctuary, suddenly felt hostile. The air too thin, the silence too loud. A deep, cold pull dragged at her core. The mark was calling. She grabbed a coat, laced her boots with shaking hands, and barely remembered to grab her phone before stumbling out the door. It was the middle of the night, but her body didn't care. The mark burned like it had a purpose, and it needed to be somewhere else. Outside, the sky hung heavy with clouds. Moonlight veiled behind a haze. The campus was quiet, but her steps were drawn to the East Quad, the place where she'd first seen them. She passed the ancient oak tree, the hollow roots blackened with shadow. The wind whispered through the leaves, calling her name in a language her human mind couldn't comprehend. But her wolf stirred deep within, listening. Her wolf. Laura stumbled to a halt near the old amphitheater steps. She wasn't a wolf. She had no shifting ability. She wasn't part of a pack. Wasn't bound to the moon cycles like the shifters were. But something inside her disagreed. A golden flicker lit the air. She looked down at her hand. Her mark glowed again. But now it throbbed with soundless vibration, echoing in her bones. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Dante. He didn't speak at first. His eyes were gold, brighter than she'd ever seen them. They glowed like lanterns in the dark. "You felt it," he said, stepping toward her. Laura nodded slowly. It was howling. "The mark is waking." Her voice trembled. "What does that mean?" "It means the bond is near breaking point. No bloods don't shift like wolves, but their power does. And when it calls, it demands an answer. I didn't ask for this. I know. They stood in silence. Then she turned to him. Dante, what happens if I can't choose? What if I choose wrong? He met her gaze without flinching. The curse decides. Blood must answer blood. If you don't choose, the curse will. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. That's why Cassian's here. He wants you confused, shaken, so the bond falters. It's working, she whispered. I don't know what's real anymore. His fingers brushed her wrist gently. This is. Her skin sparked where he touched her, but it wasn't just warmth. It was electricity, recognition. You're not alone in this, he said, but you do have to face it. How? There's a place, he said, the Solstice Keep hidden in the mountains beyond Black Ridge. It's where the moon trials are held. If we can get there, you can undergo the calling. It's a ritual that tests the bond. If we're meant, truly meant, it will confirm it. It'll break the curse. And if we're not, then the mark will choose another. Lara's blood ran cold. When do we go? Now. They didn't take the car. Dante led her through the outer edges of the forest, down hidden paths bathed in silver mist. He moved silently, his senses sharp and alert. Lara followed close, her heartbeat loud in her ears. The deeper they went, the more ancient the forest became. The trees weren't just tall. They were towering, gnarled, watching. And the shadows between them whispered with memories that weren't hers. I know this place, she murmured, running her fingers along a moss-covered trunk. I've dreamed of it, because it remembers you. She blinked. The forest? Nullbloods were born of the first pack. The earth remembers its own. They reached a stone archway covered in ivy. Dante stopped. From here we go alone, he said. No phones, no weapons, just you and your truth. Lara stepped through. Immediately the world changed. The air turned thick with power. The moon shone directly above them now. No clouds. No haze, just paw. Blinding truth. The Solstice Keep wasn't a building. It was a circle of obsidian stones, rising from the earth like the ribs of a fallen beast. At the center, a pool of still water, black as ink, shimmering with stars. Dante knelt beside it. Place your hand in. Lara hesitated. Then she knelt beside him, her fingers trembling as she reached out. The second her skin touched the water, the world screamed. A blast of sound and memory exploded in her skull. Visions flickered behind her eyes. Wolves circling her. Blood on a throne. Cassian's red eyes burning. Dante bleeding in a field of silver grass. And a voice. Choose. She gasped, yanking her hand back. But when she looked down, her fingers were glowing. Not gold, not red, both. Dante stared. That's not possible. What's happening to me? She whispered. Before he could answer, the sky thundered. The moon pulsed, and a single howl cut through the silence. Not from Dante. Not from Cassian, from her own throat. Lara dropped to her knees as the sound tore through her. Her eyes burned, her back arched. Something was changing. Dante grabbed her, voice full of panic. Lara, breathe. Listen to me. You're not shifting. You're awakening. But her mind was already gone. She was standing in a different place, a dream world, an altar under the stars, and before her stood two men, Dante, Cassian, both bleeding, both bound, and a dagger in her hand. She turned, but the stars had gone dark, and in the silence that followed, a voice spoke. The one you save will rule. The one you kill will never haunt you again. But choose wrong, and the world will burn. And behind her, a third shadow moved, wearing her face. Chapter 8. The altar of stars vanished in a blink, and Laura's eyes snapped open. Her lungs fought for air as though she'd been drowning in that vision. She was still kneeling at the edge of the obsidian pool. Dante crouched beside her, his face drawn tight with worry. But something was wrong. Everything was too quiet. The forest should have been alive with sound. Wind, rustling leaves, the occasional howl in the distance. Instead, silence blanketed the clearing like death. "Lara!" Dante's voice was softer now, edged with something she couldn't name. "What did you see?" She shook her head, slowly rising to her feet. "A choice between you and Cassian. But there was something else. Someone else. She looked just like me." Dante's face darkened. "What?" she asked. "What is it?" "There's a legend," he said quietly, "about a null blood so powerful that her soul fractured under the moon's gaze. She became two beings, light and shadow, one to protect the bond, the other to break it." Lara's stomach turned. "And you think that thing I saw was the shadow version of me?" "I think she's real," he said, "and she's waking up." She looked down at her hands. They were no longer glowing. A humorless smile tugged at her lips. "Great. I'll pack a snack." They traveled under the cover of night, crossing through broken valleys and frost-covered plains. The closer they drew to the shrouded veil, the thicker the air became, dense with magic so old it felt like walking through forgotten breath. The entrance to the astral archives lay behind a waterfall that shimmered with moonlight, even though the sky above was black. Lara reached out to touch it, but the second her fingers met the cascade, it parted, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. No words were spoken. They descended in silence. Each step seemed to echo a heartbeat. Each breath felt stolen. At the bottom, a vast chamber filled with glowing orbs, each floating midair, tethered by threads of silver mist. Ancient tomes hovered, circling in gentle loops, and walls carved from crystal pulsed softly with magic. Dante whispered, "Only no-bloods can read the true texts." Lara stepped forward. The nearest orb pulsed. A book unlatched itself midair and dropped into her waiting hands. The leather was cracked, the pages brittle and dust-laced. She opened it carefully. Inside, her own name, Laura Ashwin. She gasped, This is about me." Dante stood frozen behind her. She read aloud, "When the twin moons rise and shadow meets skin, the fractured soul shall be tested. One shall wear the crown, one shall wear the grave. Only the true heart shall remain." Lara's hands trembled. "Twin moons," she whispered. "Cassian and you." But Dante's gaze had turned to a second book floating beside her. It hovered in place, humming. She reached for it, but it flinched away, darting into the shelves like prey. Lara followed, ignoring Dante's warning. She turned a corner and froze. the second she entered the hidden chamber, the temperature dropped. Frost crawled along the walls. The light dimmed, and from the far end, a mirror emerged. But the reflection wasn't hers. The woman inside had Lara's face, but paler. Her eyes weren't gold or brown. They were silver, glowing like moonlit knives. Her smile was slow, predatory. "Hello, Lara," she said. Lara staggered back. "What are you?" "I'm what you hide, what you fear, the part of you that knows the truth. You don't want to choose between Dante and Cassian. You want to be free. You want to burn the curse to ash." "That's not true," Lara whispered. "Oh, it is. You've always hated cages, even gilded ones. Love is just another leash. Even Dante's devotion terrifies you. What if it's not real? What if it's just the bond?" Lara's throat tightened. "Stop! You think you're strong enough to choose?" the reflection hissed. "You can't even choose who you are. But don't worry, I can." The mirror cracked. Lara screamed as something tore through her mind. Memories that weren't hers, shadows flooding her vision. The sound of wolves howling and the flash of silver eyes. Dante found her seconds later, holding her upright as she collapsed. "What happened?" he asked. She's real," Lara said, shivering. "She's me, but not. She wants to take over." He gritted his teeth. "We have to leave now." They didn't stop until they were miles away, racing through woods until the archives were nothing but a glow on the horizon. But it was too late. When they finally reached the edge of the clearing near the university, Lara stumbled. The pain returned. The mark on her wrist split open, not with blood, but with light. From within, a second crescent formed, mirroring the first, and from the shadows behind the trees, silver eyes watched. Then a voice spoke that chilled her soul. "Two hearts, one fate. Let's see which of us wins." And Lara turned face to face with herself. Chapter 9. They stared at each other. Two versions of Lara standing only feet apart, yet divided by something deeper than flesh. The real Lara's breath trembled. Her shadow self, same face, same body, radiated cold power, her silver eyes glowing like moonlit daggers. She tilted her head and smirked, as if amused by Lara's terror. "You're not me," Lara whispered. "Oh, but I am," the doppelganger purred. "I'm the part of you that stopped pretending, the part that doesn't apologize. The part that knows love is a leash and power is the only freedom," growled low in his throat, stepping protectively in front of Lara. "You're not welcome here." The shadow self laughed. "Neither are you, Alpha. You think she's yours? Cute. But I'm the bond she hides. I'm the truth she won't face." "Enough," Lara said, stepping forward. "Why are you here?" "To remind you," the shadow said, walking in a slow circle around her, "that this isn't just about Dante or Cassian. This is about who you are. You can't serve the curse and your heart. The ritual awakened me, and now that I'm free, well, we're going to find out which one of us deserves to keep this body." The last words twisted like knives in Lara's stomach. Dante pulled her back. "We're leaving." But before they could retreat, the shadow flung out her hand. A shock wave of moonlight burst from her palm, sending Dante flying back into the trees. "Dante!" Lara screamed, running to him. he groaned. Dazed, but alive. She crouched beside him, her body trembling. "I'm fine," he choked. Don't let her in." She turned slowly, but the shadow was gone. Only a silver shimmer remained, dancing in the air like dust moys. Back at her apartment, Lara paced restlessly. Every mirror had been covered, every reflective surface hidden. Her mark still throbbed. 2 crescents now, 1 gold, 1 silver. "I can feel her," she said aloud in my mind. "She's waiting." Dante sat near the window, arms crossed tightly. His expression was unreadable. "She's not just a threat," he said at last. "She's a mirror. The bond might have split in 2. If so, I'm the danger to everyone," Lara finished. "No," Dante said sharply. "You're still you. She's a fragment. She only has power if you give it to her." Lara sat beside him. "She said something about me choosing the curse or my heart. What if they're not the same?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Then we'll tear the curse down." She looked at him. "You sound so sure." He met her eyes. "Because I'd rather destroy it than lose you." A knock shattered the moment. They both froze. Another knock, harder this time. Lara crept to the door. "Who is it?" No answer. She opened it slowly and gasped. Cassian stood there, soaked in rain, his red eyes dimmer than usual. He looked haunted. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "I need to talk to you." Dante surged forward. "Absolutely not." But Cassian held up his hands. "Not here to fight, I swear. Just please listen." Lara hesitated. Cassian looked broken. Something had changed. 5 minutes, she said, stepping aside. He walked in slowly, dripping water onto the rug. Dante stood behind Lara like a silent wall of fury. "I saw her," Cassian said. "Your other half." Lara's breath hitched. "She came to me," he continued, "told me the bond was unstable, that if I wanted to win, I had to act now." "And you believed her?" Dante snapped. "I don't know what I believe anymore," Cassian admitted, "but I do know this. If she's strong enough to manifest, then the curse is accelerating," Lara asked. "What happens if it breaks before I choose?" Cassian looked at her, all sarcasm gone. "It chooses for you based on blood, on fear, on survival. And it doesn't care about love." The words hit like a hammer. Lara sank onto the couch. Dante and Cassian were both right in different ways, but none of this answered the most dangerous question. Which Lara would the curse recognize? That night, sleep was impossible. Lara dreamt of fire and mirrors and silver chains, of Dante holding her hand as it burned, of Cassian crying out her name from a crumbling ledge, and always, always the shadow, laughing from behind glass, whispering, "Choose me." She awoke gasping, drenched in sweat, and standing at the foot of her bed was herself. The shadow smiled. No more waiting. Lara scrambled out of bed. "How are you here?" "I'm you, remember?" she said, silver eyes gleaming. "Every time you doubt, every time you waver, I grow stronger. You gave me shape the moment you hesitated." Lara lunged for the mirror, but it shattered before her hand touched it. "Too late," a shadow whispered. And then Lara felt it, a pull, like a thread snapping. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Her vision blurred. The room twisted sideways, and suddenly she was standing in her own body, but no longer in control. Her limbs weren't hers. Her voice wasn't hers. "Oh, goddess," she whispered, horrified. "She's inside me." The mirror shimmered again now. The real Lara was trapped inside it, and the shadow wore her skin like a second skin. Dante burst through the door, face pale. "Lara!" She tried to scream, but the voice that answered was not hers. "I'm right here," said the shadow, and she smiled. And as Dante took her hand, the real Lara pounded helplessly behind the glass. Chapter 10. From behind the mirror's cold surface, the real Lara screamed. But no sound escaped. From behind the mirror's cold surface, the real Lara screamed, but no sound escaped. She could see everything through the distorted glass. The room, Dante's face, her own body now piloted by the shadow self. And worst of all, he couldn't tell the difference. "Lara," Dante asked, his tone clipped but concerned, "are you okay?" The shadow tilted her head, masking the smile with something that almost passed for vulnerability. "I just had a bad dream." Dante moved closer. Lara's heart pounded behind the glass. No, she wanted to cry out, "That's not me. That's not your Lara." The shadow tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Exactly the way Lara often did when nervous. It was perfect mimicry. "I think the impostor whispered, 'I need to get out of the city, away from all this.'" Dante narrowed his eyes. "Since when do you run?" The fake Lara hesitated, and that moment of pause was too perfect. "Since I saw myself tear open," she answered, voice shaking just right. "Since I found out I'm not whole." He stepped closer. Lara's spirit pressed harder against the mirror's edge, but it felt like pushing against water that wouldn't ripple. "You don't smell like fear," Dante said slowly. The shadow blinked. What? You always smell like rosemary and ink when you're scared. Right now, you smell like winter. Like," he paused, "something else." The shadow chuckled softly, her silver-touched eyes dancing. "And maybe you're finally seeing all of me." Behind the glass, the real Lara's mind raced. She knew Dante was close. He could feel something was wrong. But the bond between them wasn't enough if he didn't know what to trust. Suddenly, the air changed. A crack, a whisper. Someone else was in the mirror. Lara spun. She wasn't alone anymore. In the depths of the reflection stood a boy, no older than 12, with pale eyes and skin dusted in moonlight. He didn't speak, just tilted his head and gestured silently. "Who are you?" Lara asked. He placed a hand on the mirror's other side. When she mirrored him, their palms aligned, and a rush of emotion passed through her. Sadness, rage, magic. Images flooded her mind, of Dante in a dark cell, chained and bloody, of Cassian facing a blade aimed at his heart, of Lara standing in the middle of a burning field, her reflection smiling in the fire. Then the boy's lips finally moved. One word, "Remember," and he vanished. In the waking world, the imposter Lara paced the apartment while Dante watched her like a hawk. Every gesture she made, every word she said, he studied with caution. Then the front door burst open. Cassian. He strode in like a storm, his red eyes blazing. "Where is she, the shadow?" Lara smiled coyly. "Cassian, you came." "Cut the act," he growled. "I can smell her, the real her. She's not in that body." Dante turned toward him. What did you say? Cassian advanced slowly. That's not Lara. That's her shad. The impostor froze. So predictable, she murmured. I expected Dante to notice first, but you. Maybe the curse hasn't fried your instincts yet. Her body shifted slightly, just a shimmer, but enough to see the silver glow start to rise from her fingertips. Dante bared his teeth. Let her out! You think I took her against her will? The shadow said she created me. Every time she doubted, every time she hid from her truth, I grew. I didn't steal her life. She handed it over. Cassian pulled a dagger from his coat. Then it's time we take it back. The shadow hissed and the lights exploded. Inside the mirror, Lara was sprinting. The reflections had changed. No longer just her room. They now showed memories, her life, her fears, her choices. She passed an image of her as a child, curled in bed, reading werewolf lore. Another of her, running from a boy who tried to kiss her. Another more recent, of Dante's hand on her cheek as he said, "You're safe with me." The next image stopped her cold, her standing in front of Cassian, telling him she could never love him. His expression fractured. Why are you showing me this? She cried. A voice echoed in the mirror's halls. Because truth is the key. The boy's voice again. Truth? She called out. To break free, you must claim every part of who you are. Not just the good, the shadow, the fear, the bloodline. You are both. Her heart raced. But if I become both, doesn't she win? No, the voice said gently. You win because only the whole soul can survive the bond. Outside, chaos erupted. Cassian and Dante fought side by side, dodging the impostor's attacks. Every blast of magic she threw split the room. Bookshelves cracked, the walls bled sparks. But she was faltering. She's weakening, Cassian grunted. The bond is resisting her. Dante nodded. It's Lara. She's still in there. Then the impostor froze. Her body jolted forward, and the mirror in the room exploded into 1,000 shards. From the burst of light, Lara fell forward, landing hard on her knees. Her body, her true body, back under her own command. She was breathless, trembling, hair wild. But she was back. Cassian dropped his dagger. Dante rushed to her, arms wrapping around her in a tight, bone-deep embrace. I knew, he murmured. I knew it was you. Lara clung to him, but then her body seized up. A terrible pain rippled through her mark. Her wrist, where the twin crescent had been, began to glow like fire. No, 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 she gasped. Cassian's eyes widened. The curse! It's reacting! And then Lara collapsed, her eyes wide, unblinking, and her final breath came with a whisper. Choose me. Chapter 11. Dante dropped to his knees beside her lifeless body. Lara, no! No, no, no! His voice cracked as he gathered her into his arms. Her skin was cold. Her chest didn't rise. The crescent marks on her wrist glowed faintly, then faded entirely. Cassian stood frozen. What just happened? She chose, Dante whispered hoarsely. Or the curse chose for her. She's not breathing, Dante, Cassian said, stepping forward. We need to. She's not dead, Dante roared, eyes glowing with wild golden fire. His aura exploded in the room, knocking over a nearby table. She's not. She can't be. He pressed his forehead to hers, shaking, breathing her name like a prayer. Cassian knelt on the other side. If the curse forced a bond, if it activated without her conscious will, then it might have torn her spirit apart. She could be in between. In between? Dante echoed, broken. Cassian looked grim. The bond isn't just physical, it's spiritual. If she resisted it in the final moment, her soul might have been ejected from her body. Stuck between the bloodline's realm and the moon's. How do we bring her back? Cassian looked at the symbols burned onto the floor, the remnants of the shadow's magic. The way she got trapped may be the only way out, but it's dangerous. If you go after her, you risk getting pulled under too. Dante didn't hesitate. I'll go inside the spiritual plane. Lara drifted. The world around her was gray and dim, like moonlight reflected in smoke. Voices murmured faintly. Her limbs felt numb, her heart like a distant echo. She looked down. Her body was whole, but the world wasn't real. The shadows shifted strangely. Some took familiar shapes. Professor Albright muttering to himself, the rude latte customer sneering. Then others formed that made her shiver herself over and over in moments of pain, rage, fear, rejection. Then one voice cut through everything. You still don't know, do you? Lara turned and saw the shadow version of herself again. She stood confidently, dressed in black. Her expression, a mix of cruelty and sadness. I broke the rules because you never would, the shadow said. I wanted to live, to feel. You only wanted to hide. I didn't ask for this, Lara whispered. But you are this, the shadow said. You think this story was about Dante, Cassian? No, it was always about you. What you are, what you were born to be. What am I? The shadow touched her forehead, and suddenly a flood of images crashed through her. A newborn with glowing marks, a ritual gone wrong, a woman, her mother, running through the woods, a man with dark eyes, screaming, protect her, hide her bloodline, Lara gasped. I'm not just human. No, the shadow said gently. You're something ancient, something the bloodlines fear. What am I? Lara cried again. The shadow smiled. You are a no-born. Back in the apartment, Dante lay Lara gently on the floor and drew a crescent shape in salt around her body. Cassian recited a binding incantation, and Dante closed his eyes, reaching across the bond. His pulse slowed. His senses stretched. He fell inside the spiritual plane. Dante landed with a jolt, disoriented but determined. He stood on the edge of a frozen lake. Above him, a fractured moon hung low, casting strange silver light. He turned and saw her. Lara standing across the lake talking to herself. No, not herself, her shadow. He started toward her. Lara! She didn't hear him. The shadow had her hands on Lara's face, whispering something urgently. You must choose now. If you stay split, the curse wins. Dante dies. Cassian dies. You all fade. Lara shook her head. I don't even know how. Dante stepped onto the lake, but it cracked beneath him. The shadow looked up and smiled darkly. You brought him here? She purred bold. Dante called out, Lara, look at me. It's me. I came for you. Lara blinked, tears on her cheeks. How are you here? The bond, he said. It led me. I felt you slipping. I couldn't let go. But I don't know how to be who I'm supposed to be, she whispered. I'm not a wolf. I'm not a witch. I'm not even fully human. You're Lara, he said fiercely. You are mine, and that means everything that you are is enough. The shadow growled, touching. But she's not ready. Let her go, Dante snarled, stepping forward again. But the lake cracked wider beneath him. The shadow whispered to Lara, make your choice. Dante's eyes locked on hers. Choose me, he said softly. Not because you're bound, but because you want to. The air trembled. Lara closed her eyes, and then she reached out, not to the shadow, but to Dante. I'll choose, she whispered. Me and you. The light exploded. The mirror around her shattered. The shadow screamed and was pulled into the wind. Dante gasped as he opened his eyes. Back in the apartment, Lara coughed, blinking awake. Lara, he cried, pulling her up. You're back! She collapsed into his arms, but before either of them could speak, the windows shattered. Cassian stepped back from the door, bladed out. Figures in red cloaks poured into the room. Moonless warriors, the no-born hunters. Their leader lifted her hood. She had Lara's eyes. Target secured, the woman said coldly. You're coming with us. And Lara realized with horror that the war she'd feared was just beginning. Chapter 12. Dante stood protectively in front of Lara, eyes glowing with furious gold. Cassian had already flanked her other side, his blade humming with raw energy, but they were outnumbered. The cloaked figures moved in silence, each one radiating the chilling presence of moonless warriors. Soldiers trained not to kill, but to erase. Erase bloodlines, erase history, erase threats. Lara's knees trembled beneath her, still weak from the possession and return. But she forced herself upright. You know who I am, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The woman who led them, icy eyes, perfect posture, mouth carved from cruelty, nodded once. You are the last no-born, a living paradox, and a threat to every bloodline the moon ever touched. Then why not kill me? Lara asked. The woman smiled faintly. Because no-borns are not killed, they are cleansed. Cassian's blade flashed. You'll have to get through me. And me, Dante added, his voice low and lethal. But the woman didn't flinch. You misunderstand, she said calmly. We weren't sent to fight. We were sent to collect. If we wanted war, the sky would already be red. Her gaze settled back on Lara. The question is not whether you'll come with us. It's how much of the world will burn if you don't. Back at the Valeria's estate, the grand hall had been emptied and reinforced. Cairo, Dante's second, paced along the perimeter, magic wards flaring under his fingertips. She's not safe here, he said. They'll come back. They already came, Dante snapped, and we let them walk out with her. Cassian slammed his fist into a column, cracking the marble. We should have fought harder. She made the choice, Dante muttered. She surrendered to protect us, to protect me. Cassian's eyes met his. Then we better be worth the sacrifice. Dante turned to Cairo. Can you track her? No-borns don't leave normal magical traces, Cairo said. They don't follow the moon's rules. But Dante asked, she left something behind. Crow held up a shimmering shard, glass, but pulsing with pale light. When the mirror broke during her possession, Part of her soul was imprinted into it. "A soul shard," Cassian whispered. "She might have left it intentionally," Ko said. "A tether. If we can amplify it, we can trace her to wherever they're holding her." Dante's voice was like steel. "Do it." Lara sat in a chair made of stone and runes, her hands shackled in glowing silver cuffs that dampened her strength but not her awareness. The woman, who had yet to give a name, stood nearby, watching her as one might watch a wild animal trapped behind glass. "What do you want from me?" Lara asked. "To understand why you survived," the woman replied. "I don't even understand that." The woman's cold gaze flickered. "That's what makes you dangerous." Lara leaned forward. "You keep saying I'm a threat. But to who exactly?" "The moon goddess, your precious bloodlines, or just your control over both. You think this is about power?" The woman scoffed. "This is about balance. The moon marked families with gifts. Wolves, seers, witches, alphas, for generations, and your kind was made to erase them." "I never asked to be this," Lara snapped. "And yet you are." The woman walked to a stone wall and placed her hand against it. The surface shimmered, revealing a series of names etched in light. "These were the ones before you, the other no-borns, all purged before they reached adulthood. All except you." "Why was I spared?" Lara asked quietly. "Because someone betrayed us," the woman said, turning back. "Someone who loved you enough to risk the moon's wrath." Lara's heart pounded. "My mother?" The woman said nothing. Instead, she gestured, and 2 guards brought in a leather-bound book. The cover bore the same faded gold script as the one Professor Miller had dropped in the library weeks ago. "Annihilators and Omens, a history of null bloods." They opened it before her, and what she saw sent chills down her spine. Sketches of people whose faces resembled hers, written prophecies of their return, diagrams of the way nullborns could silence wolves, stop magic, unravel soul bonds. She wasn't just dangerous, she was a weapon. "But I've never hurt anyone," she whispered. "Yet," the woman said. Dante stood before the old oak in the forbidden grove. The soul shard pulsing in his hand. The winds howled around him, but he didn't flinch. "Lara," he whispered, "wherever you are, hold on." The shard began to glow, then hover. Cassian stepped back. "It's pointing somewhere." Dante turned to Cairo. "Open a rift." Cairo's eyes went wide. "That's forbidden magic. Rifts cross bloodline boundaries." "If the moon finds out," "She already did," Dante said grimly. "And she's done nothing." Cairo hesitated, then drew the sigil. The air ripped open. Violent and bright. Beyond it was darkness. Not the absence of light, but the presence of everything the moon had hidden away. "Let's go," Dante said. Cassian nodded, and they stepped through. Lara stared at the last page of the book. Her name was written there. Lara Vale, status unknown, predicted potential Omega-level null activation. There was a sketch beneath it, of her eyes glowing gold and silver, of her hands split with light, of 2 figures beside her, one cloaked in shadows, the other lit by flame. Dante and Cassian. "They're coming for me," Lara said aloud. The woman closed the book slowly. "Then I'll make sure they arrive just in time." She nodded to the guards to watch you die. And for the first time, Lara didn't feel fear. She felt fire. Chapter 13. The chains binding Lara's wrists pulsed with a silver glow meant to suppress whatever power lived in her blood. But she wasn't just an accident. She was a nullborn. Yes, but she was also a survivor. "You're going to kill me," Lara said, looking straight into the woman's eye. "But you're afraid to do it now." The commander's gaze didn't waver. "Afraid? No, I'm waiting. You have potential. You could be an asset even now if you would just submit." "Submit?" Lara let out a bitter laugh. "You kidnapped me, caged me, read my future out of a book like I'm some kind of prophecy." "You are a prophecy." "No, I'm a girl who knows how to survive people like you." The woman's lip curled. Pity. She raised her hand. The chains around Lara's wrists tightened. "Prepare her for the ritual of silence," she commanded. "At dusk, her bloodline ends." Dante stepped through the rift and staggered slightly as his feet hit ground, though the world before him barely resembled Earth. Shadows swirled unnaturally, and the air was thick with whispers. Cassian looked around, his brow creased. She could feel it now, coiling beneath her skin like a sleeping storm. Every heartbeat echoed louder. Every breath brought clarity. She wasn't just an accident. She was a nullborn. Yes, but she was also a survivor. "You're going to kill me," Lara said, looking straight into the woman's eyes. "But you're afraid to do it now." The commander's gaze didn't waver. "Afraid? No, I'm waiting. You have potential. You could be an asset even now if you would just submit." "Submit?" Lara let out a bitter laugh. "You kidnapped me, caged me, read my future out of a book like I'm some kind of prophecy." "You are a prophecy." "No, I'm a girl who knows how to survive people like you." The woman's lip curled. Pity. She raised her hand. The chains around Lara's wrists tightened. "Prepare her for the ritual of silence," she commanded. "At dusk, her bloodline ends." Dante stepped through the rift and staggered slightly as his feet hit ground, though the world before him barely resembled Earth. Shadows swirled unnaturally, and the air was thick with whispers. Cassian looked around, his brow creased. "This isn't a realm, it's a wound, the space between bloodlines," Crow confirmed behind them, "where souls who cross the moon's decrees are exiled. The perfect place to hide something the moon once forgotten. Or someone." Dante growled. "We're close. I can feel her." The soul shard pulsed again in his palm, casting a silver trail that led across the shifting terrain. They ran. Each step seemed to weigh more than the last, like time itself was fighting their movement. Dante gritted his teeth. "She's afraid, but she's also angry. I can feel it. She's waking up," Cassian said grimly. "And when she does," Cairo began, "she'll burn everything down," Dante finished. Back in her stone cell, Lara was alone, except for the whispers that leaked through the cracks in her memories. Voices, bloodline history. The book had said nullborns could sever a wolf from the moon's light, that their energy was not blessed by the goddess, but born of her shadow. The moon gave wolves their power, eyes glowing like stormlit skies. "I'm done being studied," she said calmly. "I'm done running," the commander snarled. "Subdue her." 10 guards moved in. Lara raised one hand, and every rune etched into their armor turned to ash. Weapons clattered to the floor. Wolves in midship collapsed. gasping, unable to call their beast. "I'm not your prisoner," Lara whispered. "I'm your extinction." Outside the shattered temple walls, Dante and the others had reached the outer edge of the bloodline sanctum. The air was shaking with power. Cassian blinked as a second explosion echoed from inside. "Is that?" Dante didn't wait. He bolted forward, leaping through the fractured barrier and into chaos. The hall was filled with smoke, broken stone, and unconscious warriors. And at the center of it all stood her, Lara, glowing with power. Her hair wild, her eyes alight like twin moons. She turned and saw him and smiled. He was at her side in a heartbeat, wrapping her in his arms. "You did this." "I am this," she whispered, and they finally understand what that means. Cassian stepped beside them, wearily scanning the carnage. "We need to leave now. They'll regroup." "No," Lara said, lifting her chin. "We're not running anymore." "They still have power," Dante reminded her. She nodded. "Then we take it from them." The moonless commander had retreated to the inner sanctum, lighting sigils of protection. She poured blood across an ancient altar, activating a last resort defense. "They think she's won," she hissed. "They think they are the gods now." Behind her, a cloaked figure stepped out of the shadows. "You were warned," the figure said. "Let her live, and she'll destroy everything." The commander trembled. "It's begun, hasn't it?" The figure nodded slowly. "The Nullborn has awakened, in the heart of the broken temple." Lara climbed to the central spire and looked up at the strange shimmering sky. For a moment, she stood alone, and then Dante took her hand. "You're not just my mate," he said softly. "You're something more." She squeezed his fingers, the weight of his warmth grounding her. "I feel like I was born for this moment," she whispered. He leaned closer. "Then let's finish what they started." But before they could move, the sky split open, and through it descended a being, neither man nor wolf, shimmering with the same pale energy as the moon. The wind howled as the being landed before Lara, its eyes glowing white. It raised a hand, and the ground cracked with raw power. "Nullorn," it spoke. "The moon herself has decreed your judgment." Chapter 14. Lara froze, her heartbeat thundering louder than the wind howling through the temple's broken walls. The being that stood before her wasn't just a shifter or a creature of shadow. It radiated celestial energy, its translucent skin glowing with silvery luminescence. Eyes like bottomless moons. A mantle of stars drifted behind it, suspended in an unseen current. Dante stepped in front of her instinctively, but the being raised its hand, not in threat, but in command. "Do not interfere, Alpha. This is not your trial." Lara touched Dante's shoulder gently. "It's okay." His eyes met hers. The golden heat in them dimmed, replaced by something harder to face. Fear. She stepped forward. "I'm not afraid of you," Lara said, her voice steadier than her insides. "You should be," the being replied without malice. "I am a veiled watcher, an emissary of the moon herself, and I have come to weigh the soul of the last Nullborn." Whispers echoed through the shadows, voices long dead awakened by the sacred presence. Cassian muttered under his breath. "I didn't think the moon ever spoke." "She doesn't," Cairo whispered, "not unless the balance of her design is at risk." The Watcher's gaze did not waver. "You were not meant to survive the womb. You were born with no tether to the moon, no allegiance. You are a tear in the weave of fate. The nullborn were created in error, corrected by elimination. But I did survive, Laura said. Doesn't that mean something? It means someone interfered, the Watcher responded. Your mother, Laura's throat tightened. You knew her. The Watcher's face remained still. She was warned, and still she chose to cloak you from our sight. For 3 years, you went unnoticed. By the time we discovered the truth, the bond with the Alpha's bloodline had begun. Laura's stomach twisted. Dante, he stepped forward. What does that mean? It means her presence corrupted your power, the Watcher said, altered your lineage. You are no longer just an Alpha, Dante Valerius. You are an unbalanced heir to a throne that may no longer exist. The room stilled. Laura's hands curled into fists. So what? You came to destroy me? Reset the world? No, we came to give you a choice. Beyond the broken chamber walls, the moon's light intensified, casting long shadows that moved with sentient precision. Guards from the fallen temple stirred and moaned, but did not rise. Some wept openly, their wolves silenced permanently by Lara's earlier surge of power. The magic was unstable. It had always been, but now it was evolving. Choices, the Watcher continued, must be honored. A glowing mirror appeared between them, rising from the cracked marble like a blooming silver flower. In one reflection, the Watcher said, You see a world where you relinquish your power, where your null energy is bound forever beneath the earth. You live, but never as yourself again. And the other, Lara asked. The Watcher hesitated. In the other, you embrace what you are. You ascend beyond the moon's light. But if you choose that path, the world will fear you, worship you, hunt you. And the bloodline you love, he turned his glowing eyes to Dante, will never be the same. Dante looked at Lara. What is your heart telling you? That I was never meant to be small, she whispered. She stepped toward the mirror. It flickered, then split into 2 shimmering halves. In one, a version of her dressed in linen, surrounded by gardens, smiling but dulled, disconnected, powerless. In the other, she stood beneath the stars, robed in flame and shadow, leading not just wolves, but witches, fae, and forgotten creatures, eyes glowing silver, wings made of light and storm. She turned to the Watcher. I choose. But a crack of thunder split the sky, and a scream echoed down the broken corridors. Cairo came running from the hallway. They're here! The purifiers! Cassian's jaw clenched. The moon's enforcers. They didn't come to witness, Cairo said. They came to kill. Outside the temple, dozens of figures emerged from the fractured veil, clad in shimmering battle armor that reflected the moon's fury. Purifiers, elite servants of the Celestial Order. Each carried a curved blade. Each one could end a bloodline with a single cut. Lara turned to the Watcher. You said I had a choice. You did, he replied. But the moon, she has made hers. The Watcher vanished in a burst of light, and the purifiers charged. Dante grabbed Lara's wrist. You're not dying here. Cassian activated the runes in his blade. Hold the line. The air was filled with roars, steel, magic, and fire. Lara stepped into the center of it all, the mirror at her back, and raised both hands. I didn't survive all of this just to be erased. Her voice rang like a bell across the battlefield. Energy pulsed from her core, knocking back the first wave of attackers. But the purifiers kept coming, faster, fiercer. Cairo yelled over the chaos. "Choose now, Laura! Choose who you want to be!" Laura's heart screamed with clarity. She was tired of being the girl who ran, the girl who hid. She closed her eyes and walked through the second half of the mirror. The world shattered. The ground quaked. A second moon burst into the sky, glowing violet and gold. All the wolves howled, and the purifiers stopped, stared, and began to tremble. Dante's voice broke through the stillness. "Lara?" She turned toward him slowly. Her skin shimmered with power. Her voice echoed from somewhere far older than the stars. "I am not your mistake. I am your reckoning." Chapter 15. Lara stood where the mirror had shattered, her breath steady, her pulse quiet beneath skin lit with starfire. The second moon, born of her choice, hung in the sky above, pulsing with violet light. It was neither the moon of the wolves nor a celestial mistake. It was hers. All around her, the battlefield stood still. The purifiers, once proud guardians of the moon's decree, had dropped their blades. Pause. Their faces twisted in confusion, awe, and fear. Dante stared at her. She was no longer just the girl from the coffee shop. She wasn't even just his mate. She was something more. "Lara," he said again, stepping toward her cautiously. She turned to him slowly. The glow faded slightly from her skin, but her eyes still gleamed with that soft, dangerous silver. "It's still me," she said gently. Dante swallowed. "You ascended. I became who I was meant to be." She lifted her hand, palm open. "But only because you believed I could." He didn't hesitate. He took her hand, strong and sure. Their bond flared again, stronger than it had ever been. Wolves around the battlefield felt it ripple through the pack lines. Something deeper than alpha and mate. Something ancient and undeniable. The second bond. Cassian lowered his weapon, the runes on it dimming. Crow stepped forward, bowing his head slightly. "Null no longer. You're something new." Lara nodded. Not wolf, not moon-ouched. Not mistake. She looked to the trembling purifiers. "Go home," she said softly. "Tell your moon that balance has returned." One of them, an older woman with silvery braids and tears in her eyes, sank to her knees. "Forgive us. We didn't understand. We thought you were a wound." Lara walked to her and lifted her chin. "I was," she said, "until I realized wounds don't mean weakness. They mean survival." The woman nodded, her shoulders trembling with quiet shame. One by one, the rest of the purifiers vanished in streaks of silver light, returning to whatever realm had sent them. The battle was over, but the world had changed. The next morning, the Valeria's estate stood in silence. Lara sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the new moon slowly dim as dawn broke. Dante stepped outside, 2 steaming mugs in his hands. "Coffee?" he offered. Lara smiled softly. "You remembered?" "I remember everything about you," he said, settling beside her. For a long time, they drank in silence, the sunrise casting golden threads across the world, reborn. "Do you regret it?" he asked finally. "Choosing the second path?" Lara looked out at the horizon. "I think I would have regretted never knowing who I was." "You're more than I ever dreamed of," he said. She turned her head toward him, tears shining in her eyes. "You didn't fall in love with a girl. You fell in love with a storm." "I'll build a life strong enough to stand in your storm," he said simply. She laughed, a full sound echoing off the cliffs. Then silence fell again, comfortable this time. "What happens now?" he asked. "We rebuild," she said. "But we don't go back. We go forward. A new order, a new law, ruled by an alpha and a—" She smiled. "We'll find a new word." The packs gathered weeks later beneath the twin moons. Lara stood beside Dante, wearing a silver robe laced with violet thread. The new bond mark, a symbol of unity, glowed on her collarbone. One by one, Pack Alphas knelt before her. Not because she demanded it, but because they chose to. Because they believed. She wasn't just the mate of a powerful alpha. She was their turning point, their future, their moon reborn. Later that night, under the starlit canopy, Lara danced barefoot in the garden. Dante watched her with reverence. No ball gown, no crown. Just the wild girl who drank too much coffee and couldn't stand history lectures. And yet, the most powerful force he'd ever known. As she turned and caught his gaze, he stepped toward her and said, "Let's write new stories." She nodded. "No more hiding," she whispered. "No more running." And then from deep within the forest, a howl split the night air. Not a howl of mourning, not one of war, but a summons, one Lara had never heard before. She paused, her head tilting. "Did you hear that?" Dante's eyes narrowed, golden once more. "That wasn't one of ours." A second moon, a second call, a second prophecy. Lara looked into the dark trees where silver mist curled between trunks. A chill ran down her spine and her breath caught in her throat. "I think something's coming," she whispered. "And this time, it's not looking for peace." The end. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please hit the like button, share it with someone who'd love this, and subscribe to Night Bond Narratives, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Tell me in the comments below which part of the world you are watching from. Also, tell me which part of the story you like the most. Compilation of a video of an audiobook takes a lot of time and effort. So, if you see any ambiguity, please ignore it. I hope you will appreciate my effort.